We are not hearing the usual music. I'm just not sure everything's okay.
Some technical difficulties.
We are live.
Very good. Welcome to the Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting. Today is Monday, February 7th, 2022. To help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and to protect the health and safety of our community, City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T UVerse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWave and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. For public comments and questions during the meeting, call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Next item, please.
1, roll call. Before I proceed with the roll call, Commissioner Peterson will not be participating in today's meeting. Commissioner Jasmadarian? Commissioner Jasmadarian? And we'll come back to her. Commissioner Kadikian?
Here?
Commissioner Law?
Present.
President Flanagan?
Here.
Commissioner Jasmadarian?
Here.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is 2 consent items. 2A, approval of the August 2nd, 2021 meeting minutes.
Do we hear, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
I second.
Our next item is 2B, approval of the October 4th, 2021 meeting minutes.
Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
I second.
Our next item is 3, GWP Commission staff comments.
Start off with Commissioner Jasmadarian. Any comments?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Commissioner Kadikian.
I just want to congratulate or commend the staff of GWP and the consultant that they've hired on the two recent major issues, which was Shell Canyon and Grayson Repower. That was a lot of work, a lot of coordination, and I know they do not get they get a lot of criticism and cynicism, but I think sometimes credit should be recognized where it's due. So I just want to thank them for their professional service, keeping a cool head, constantly answering, even though they're constantly being scrutinized and second-guessed. but I believe the staff has done a tremendous and very good and professional job with regards to those two most recent items that were heavily scrutinized. I just want to recognize them and thank them for all the effort that they put in.
Very good. Commissioner Law.
Thank you, President Flanagan. I just want to share with my fellow commissioners an article which I read recently in the Los Angeles Times. It came out just 4 days ago, and it is a discussion or an examination of the increasing demand projected on our electrical system as a result of increasing temperatures due to climate change. And I think this is a really important article. I will be sending it to all of you individually to read. But I would be interested to, hear your responses on it and take those under consideration as we move forward with our work together.
That's very good. I'll just add on to what Commissioner Kadikian said. You were really commending staff, and I second that. And I also just wanted to say that it was really we've been through, as a commission, we've been through two extremely tough issues with Shoal Canyon and with Grayson, the repowering, issues that really kind of tore me apart. We heard a lot of comment. There's a lot of rational arguments all the way around, but I was proud of our commission that we dug in, evaluated, and I think made really balanced decisions in both cases. While our hearts might have been pulled in one way or the other, I think we did a very good job as a balancing body. So anyway, thank you to my fellow commissioners for that. The next item, please.
Our next item.
President Flanagan, if I could make a comment, is that okay?
Sure.
Or request. Yeah, I'd like to request that we adjourn the meeting in memory of one of our staff members that unexpectedly passed away in January. It's Frank Williams. He's a water supervisor too. And Frank had been with the city for 37 years. And he's definitely like a kind of a beloved staff member that a lot of younger staff members really learned how to work in the water system. He spent a lot of time doing something we call as a troubleshooter. So he had a lot of interfacing with the public, and we would routinely get complimentary letters and thank you notes when Frank would go out and help residents with issues at their home. And I just, would request that if we could adjourn the meeting in his memory, that would really mean a lot.
That's I'm terribly sorry to hear about his passing. He sounds like a very influential person.
Yeah, a big part of our team.
Yeah, I've never, and frankly, I don't know. I'm curious what other commissioners' reaction is. I've never heard of adjourning a meeting in somebody's honor. Other commissioners have a comment along these lines?
We have done that. We have done that in the past, and it's common practice at City Council.
Okay, I've never heard of that. So, are we all in agreement that that we shall adjourn at this point?
No, I don't think Mr. Diego meant at this point. Later on, when we adjourn, we should mention him.
Oh,
In his memory.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification. I thought Mr. DeGhetto was saying that we should all just respectfully turn off our computers and end the meeting. So, thank you. Okay. I think the next item, Kathleen?
Next item is 4 actions. 4A, GWP Commission election for president and secretary.
I'd like to make a motion that in light of in light of our commissioner's absence, that we postpone this until our next meeting.
I second that motion or suggestion.
No objection. Hearing no objection, the item will be moved to the next.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is 5, report information, 5A, water conservation update.
President Flanagan, members of the commission, Michael DeGhetto, Chief AGM for Water, and I'm going to give an update on, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Just an update on water conservation. So I always start with basically where our water comes from, and about 30% of it comes from the San Fernando Basin, which is part of an EPA Superfund cleanup project called the Glendale Operable Unit. 4% is from the Verdugo Basin, which I'm kind of showing here in yellow. About 7% of our water is recycled water, and that comes from the LA Glendale Water Reclamation Plant. And then really in the gray line, I show 100%, right? Because we want to meet 100% of the demands from our customers. So whatever that difference is what we make up from purchased water for Metropolitan Water District. It's around 60%. Now, Metropolitan gets its water from 2 sources, the Colorado River Aqueduct and from the State Water Project. So precipitation in the Sierra Nevada and in the Colorado River Basin are an important component of the water for Glendale, like I mentioned, about 60%. So currently, and this has been updated since I went to council, but the State Water Project's at a 15% allocation. And what that means is really an 85% cutback on water that would normally be available on the State Water Project. Regional investments have helped adapt to some of the issues related to climate change, like the building of Diamond Valley Lake. So Metropolitan is able to have about 2.5 million acre feet of water in storage, which can help us get through multiple dry years. But Lake Mead, that other part of the system, is right now in a level 1 shortage. So Arizona and Nevada have had to already take some cutbacks off of water from Lake Mead. And there's about a close to a 70% chance that MWD is going to need to contribute to Lake Mead storage starting in 2024, which means a reduction in water that can be pulled out on the Colorado River. And the State Water Project, the precipitation is tracking above normal through when I ran this report. And what I did, and this is public information, so anybody can go to the state's website and you can plot different years of precipitation in the Sierra Mountains. And what I plotted was 2016, 2017, which was like one of the wettest years on record. And then I plotted last year, which is this kind of medium blue line. There's the average, which is that light blue chart. And this dark blue line is where we were to the day that I was at February 1st when I plotted this. So even though December was very wet and tracking with the wettest years, it's flatlined since then, precipitation up in the Sierras. So it's possible, if we don't get any more snow in the Sierras, this 31.5 will carry all the way through, right to the end of the water year, which is October 1st through September 30th. So, we're always in phase 1, which is really about no water waste. Basically, I love this slide about sidewalks don't get thirsty, so you should make sure your irrigation's not running off onto the sidewalks. You can't have like a once through fountain. It has to recirculate. You need to repair leaks within 72 hours. And all your watering's got to be before 9 a.m. or after 6 p.m. because you don't want to water in the middle of the day when it's sunny out and have the water evaporate. And you can't hose down your streets, you can't hose down the sidewalk, and all those sorts of things. So we recommended council to go to phase 3, and council approved that. And really the difference between phase 2 and phase 3 is we went from 3 days a week to 2 days a week. So right now it's 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays, no more than 10 minutes at each station. Except for if you have drip irrigation installed, with your native plants, you can irrigate longer than 10 minutes, but it's the same 2 days per week, Tuesdays and Saturdays. And really what that is, it's like before 9 o'clock, you're running on Tuesday, and it can't be 10 minutes per station. And I know a lot of times when we talk about stations, it's really these valves that get controlled by your controller. So each station or each zone gets fed from one of these valves, and maybe there's 4 to 6 sprinklers or so on each one of those zones. So since August, when we went to phase 2, so August through December, cumulatively, we've had about an 8.7% reduction versus 2020. We've saved, the customers have saved 306 million gallons of water. And I'm just kind of showing here, we keep track of how much water we use every month. And you can look in 2017 was that year where it was really wet, right, in February. So that's some of the lowest water consumption we've had. On the black line, in 2020 is when we went to lockdowns because of COVID restrictions, and that's really primarily commercial use went down in April. That's why April's like abnormally low there. And then just always, August and July are the highest months because of outdoor watering. And I talk about this a lot. So 70% of all of our use is residential, 40% for multifamily, 38% single family. Multifamily use, which is this green line, increases by about 12% in the summer, but single family, which is the orange line, increases by 70%. And if you just look at it, there's 48,000, almost 49,000 multifamily units, which would be apartments, condos, those kind of things. And then there's 22,000 single family units. And even since, I think it's 2012, we've added 3,300 units, but still overall, there's been an 18% total reduction in use. And that's primarily been because of reduced and more efficient outdoor water use. And just to give an example, just two different, and these are both single family, but gosh, the highest use on this unit is about 5,000 gallons in May, whereas the highest use on this unit, on this resident, is 65,000 gallons in 1 month in July. So it kind of gives some perspective, almost regardless of how many folks live in either one of these units, it's the property that's using that water. And it's just always important, like I said, about 7% of our water comes from recycled water, and there aren't any drought restrictions on it, right? It's one of those drought-proof sources. And we also, coupled with each phase of our mandatory conservation, we have a drought charge. And that's really because these items, that I'm showing here, fixing mains, fixing service lines, taking water samples. Those expenses are the same regardless of how much water is used. So it works out in phase 3, it's about 60 cents for 1,000 gallons of water. So we're charging 60 cents more for every 1,000 gallons. And that helps us, prevent like having a bigger rate increase later when we go to true it up and we do our next cost of service analysis. And as always, go to our website. We've got all kinds of ways to save water. We've got turf removal rebates, a rebate for a non-permit gray water system. We've got kind of like just smart home upgrades, which is everything. It's not just water, but it's electric as well. Again, we send out our water insight reports that tell you how you're doing. We've got rebates on clothes washers, dishwashers, high efficiency toilets. And those rebates are a little bit higher. These numbers are the higher numbers if you purchase those items in Glendale. And then we've got all kinds of information about how to plant, like a really beautiful garden that is more appropriate for the climate that we live in here. And just all kinds of examples of the different kind of flowers and plants you could use. And then we get a lot of comments about enforcement. Some folks really feel, hey, I'm doing it and my neighbor's not. So you can always report that stuff anonymously, but we have to report this to the state every month as well. And, since in December, we sent out 35 first violations, notified some folks with letters and postcards. We had 14 field visits, 46 customer calls, and this is a really good one with our smart meters, just over 1,000 automated leak alerts. So our system can monitor really for continuous low usage all the time, like there's never no usage, and it'll trigger like, hey, you might have a leak in your home. And really those are all enforcement items. We don't start out issuing tickets until like there's been several notices and several educational attempts. We've had press releases. I had an interview on CBS and KCAL talking about this. Our social media posts where we track like how many impressions there are, meaning that someone looks at it. And just, again, our bills are bi-monthly, so we're going to have like, they call them envelope snipes on there talking about what days you can water. And our newsletter is going to come out in February, and we might do some advertising in March on the Beeline. That's my report. Stop sharing. Any questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Jasmine, any comments or questions?
A couple of questions. On the recycled water, how much excess recycled water is Glendale producing? And is it possible to use that recycled water, and about how much would it cost to do that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Commissioner Jasmine Darian, we're only using about half of the water that we have available. And that's for a couple of reasons. The main reason is the pipelines that we have installed go to really big users for outdoor irrigation. So it's more economical to try and extend our system to where we could have a big offset of potable water. And we have some projects planned. We have permission from the state to do that. And really now it's just kind of a funding priority thing. We need to run another recycled main kind of up Chevy Chase Canyon. There's some big homeowners associations up there where we're going to run recycled water to and up to the golf course. And then we've got another project to go one main kind of through downtown and tie in two other mains there. We call it the Glendale T, and that's just because that's how that main's configured. Now, a big part of the remaining water that we have left that we're not using, we have a long-standing agreement with the city of Pasadena. So there's about 3,100 acre feet of water that is set to go to the city of Pasadena when they do construction on their non-potable water project, is what that's called. And then there's still just a little bit more of recycled water that we could use. But what we're waiting for is direct potable reuse regulations to be established. And what that would entail is really highly treating the water to get it to drinking water standards to be able to use it in our system. So we're thinking maybe about 5 years or so, those standards might be established where we would be able to do that.
So would you need to add extra treatment train to the recycled water, or how would that work?
Yeah, absolutely. There would have to be reverse osmosis. There would be probably some UV oxidation related to the disinfectant byproducts that are in the recycled water, as well as like some other treatment just to ensure the safety of the water. And the state has a panel that's working on establishing those regulations, but they haven't been established yet for drinking water. There's been some regulations established for highly treating and adding that water to a surface water supply before it goes into a surface water treatment plant. But we don't really have that option in Glendale. So we're kind of waiting for the most stringent regulations to come out.
And then switching topics, is there any discussion of stormwater capture to recharge the Verdugo Basin? I don't think that will work with San Fernando Basin rights, but can it work with the Verdugo Basin?
Commissioner Jasmine, so we have been working with Public Works. Part of their enhanced watershed management program would be to install dry wells and some things like that in catch basins. And you know, what we've said at GWP is like we'd be willing to help fund some of that in the Verdugo Basin because it would help the aquifer and help recharge the aquifer in the Verdugo Basin. We've spoken with Crescenta Valley Water District. They have a preliminary study to put it basically an inflatable dam in the Verdugo Wash and put an infiltration gallery under one of the parks there. But the issue that we have related to that is we're pretty sure City of LA won't agree to it. And Crescenta Valley has been speaking with them, but hasn't really been able to make progress because the adjudication for the upper Los Angeles River area basically gives all surface water to the city of Los Angeles. So an agency can't just go and divert some of that water, say to an infiltration gallery, without running the chance that the city of LA would sue for doing that. And like you mentioned in the San Fernando Basin, again, Glendale gets no benefit from recharge in the San Fernando Basin from capturing stormwater and recharging it because all the surface water belongs to the city of LA. But again, the public works folks are working on some projects, dry wells and green streets and things like that, just to comply with the enhanced watershed management program, just to basically clean water up before it gets to the river. So hopefully that's.
So what is happening to the water right now in the Verdugo Wash?
It just goes out to the ocean.
Okay. Okay, well, doesn't make sense for LA to argue about it, but never. Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Commissioner Kadikian, any comments?
Mr. De Ghetto, you had indicated there's the gray water or non-permitted gray water rebate system. I know what's gray water. I think it's the recapture of shower water. Is that correct?
Shower and sink,
Okay.
and maybe your clothes washer as well. Yeah.
So that's a non-permitted. What's the difference between a permitted, non-permitted, and the benefits?
So a permitted system needs to have a design, and you have to get a plumbing permit. The permit relates to getting a plumbing permit, and it's just a bigger system. And the non-permitted is essentially like a pipe and a perforated pipe kind of going in like a planter bed.
Mm.
So, our rebate is just for that simpler kind of system. And I would think if your clothes washer was maybe near a planter bed and you could do the work yourself, that would be the one to go with.
And is there any rebates for permitted, which would probably be much more saving water?
No, we don't have a rebate for that at this time. And really a lot of that has to do with liability associated with that because of the bacteria and things. If it wasn't professionally installed and inspected and put in the right way, there'd be a lot of concern about that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lal, questions, comments?
Good questions so far. Thank you to my fellow commissioners. I missed at the beginning of your presentation, Mr. De Ghetto, you were talking about an 85% reduction in the water allocation coming from the state water project, correct?
That's correct. When we say there's a 15% allocation, it means we're only getting 15% of the normal amount.
That's an 80% reduction. So where is that water being made up from? That's the part I missed in your presentation. Where is that water going to come from?
It's coming from water that Metropolitan has stored in their system. So both in Diamond Valley Lake and from the Colorado River and Lake Mead.
Okay, so that's coming from Diamond Valley Lake, Lake Mead, and the Colorado River. But all of those sources are also under direct pressure from the drought as well, correct?
Commissioner Lal, you're correct. So that's one of the reasons, I guess the third component is all of the agencies doing mandatory conservation. So that's one of the reasons we've all gone into that mandatory conservation. What happens is the State Water Project and the Sierras have very large swings and they're very rapid swings in the amount of precipitation. Whereas the Colorado River is a much, I would say like a slower system. So if there's a big precipitation event again on the State Water Project, in that year that happened, was it 2016, 2017, MWD took almost no water from the Colorado, right, to build up that supply in Lake Mead and used as much water as possible from the state project. So the idea is to try and forestall cutbacks as much as possible on Lake Mead. Hope that helps answer that.
Okay, and you said Lake Mead is in a level 1 storage?
Shortage. It's in a level 1 shortage. Basically means that.
What does that mean? Like, how many levels are there?
I don't know.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I understand your question. I don't know how many levels there are. I just think about when California has to cut back. And that's what I was saying. I think in my slide, it was, did I say 2024? There's like a 60% chance California might have to cut back, drawing off of Lake Mead.
Yes, that's my recollection, but that is what you said, yes.
And that just I would imagine that that would come out of some of the water that Metropolitan has stored in Lake Mead.
So I guess my question really, what's at the heart of my question is, when are we, as a city, looking at actual potentially more extreme cuts in our water usage due to the fact that not only is there, this large variation from the state water project, but now potentially, within 2 years, we're looking at serious impacts on storage as well. Or am I jumping the gun a little bit? Am I sort of leapfrogging the conversation a little bit and we're just not there yet?
Commissioner Lal, we're not there yet, but this is a really good reminder of why the Delta Conveyance projects are so important. Before Governor Brown left, Metropolitan had agreed to do the Twin Tunnel project and basically pay for the whole thing and backstop it. And, after he left, the current governor basically changed the program, and now it's, I guess, a one tunnel project. And really the bad thing about that is it kind of had to restart all of the CEQA process. But putting that Delta Conveyance project in service will help stabilize the source from the State Water Project. So in the meantime, it's like a balancing act between the supplies on the State Water Project, the Colorado River, going into mandatory conservation when we have to, and then utilizing storage that Metropolitan's built for our region.
Okay, but I hear you on that, but that project, the Delta project is potentially a minimum of 6 to 10 years out, correct?
Yeah, you're correct. And, that's kind of in the meantime could lead to more of these shortages and mandatory conservation calls.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Michael, you mentioned the drought charge. When does that take effect? In which phase does the drought charge take effect?
It starts in phase 2, and then it ratchets up for phase 3, 4, and 5. And right now, it's the 60 cents per 1,000 gallons, and that started on February 1st.
I'm reminded of when Marin, years ago, Marin residents responded to the drought by cutting back so much that, and the utility had to raise the rates, and everybody was up in arms. But I guess have we done this before, this drought charge?
President Flanagan, yes, we've had that in 2 rate cycles, I would call it. Yeah. So during the last rate cycle, it was the first time we had done it. So when we did our cost of service analysis for this rate cycle, we reanalyzed it and lowered the charge. So it's calculated really based on the amount of fixed expenses we have, because a portion of our fixed expenses are recovered in the variable rate. So this charge makes up that difference.
Understand. Thank you. I have no other questions. Do we move on to the next water system asset management report?
President, if you're ready.
Callers on this item, just wanted to make sure if we have any public callers on this item.
Let me check. We don't have none.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dory.
I'm going to share my screen again. President Flanagan, members of the commission. So I was going to take some time and talk about our asset management program on the water system. So what I'm showing here is just the asset life cycle. So, water utilities are a very asset intensive industry. And basically, you plan, design, construct, operate, and maintain. Then you gotta continuously evaluate, rehabilitate, decommission, and then you start over again and plan. So the capital improvement program is really the evaluate, plan, design, construct phase, but it's actually the shortest portion of the whole cycle, right? Operate and maintains the longest part of the cycle. And, it's really important to keep in mind that everything we replace now, we're going to need to replace in the future. This cycle really never stops. So the portion of the asset management program is the capital improvement program. So it's just a set of projects that maybe cost more than a typical O&M or typical O&M work, and they're usually planned in advance. O&M work is usually considered to be an expense instead of a capital expenditure, but sometimes we could have some overlap where if it's a really big, say, main break, and we replace, we call this stick of pipe, 20 feet of pipe or so, and the expense is really high, we might end up capitalizing that. And then that asset will be depreciated over time and help generate the depreciation expense. So we completed our water master plan in December 2015, and it's an analysis of the current system, a projection of our future needs, kind of an assessment of the current system condition at that time, recommendations on replacement, prioritization of the projects we need to do, and it's just really a roadmap for future work. And it's the source document we use to develop our 10-year CIP. And this plan goes up, the planning horizon from 2015, I think was 2040. Yeah. So we looked at 3 options, really like an accelerated implementation, a conservative, and a minimum, just to balance our rate impacts. And we went with the conservative implementation. So because, when the plan was adopted, first when the COSA was, we kind of combined some of the work into the different years. So about $9 million a year is what we've been doing. And we're going to update the plan before the next cost of service analysis. Our next phases are going to be around 12 million, but we're going to update that, and it's probably going to be around 15 million per year. Then we break it out by different groups with a big emphasis on pipelines. Some of the items at some of our facilities are really large ticket items, which might consume a whole year or 2 years worth of budget. And then there's just our kind of R&R projects like hydrant replacements and valve replacements. An interesting graphic is, we've got 380 miles of pipelines in the city, and they vary by size, material, year of installation, and their current condition. And our upgrades, we're trying to do things related to not just age and condition, but if we go in and do something, maybe we want to improve the service level that asset provides. And something like upgrading our mains, we made this determination, we're no longer going to rehabilitate 6-inch mains and smaller. We're only going to, anything 6-inch below, we're going to replace with 8-inch or above. And that, helps improve fire flow, and it helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions caused by the energy we would need to pump water. And so we broke them down into different categories, like 4-inch, that's almost 30 miles of 4-inch, 18 miles of 6-inch. That was installed before 1945. And we've got 66 miles 6-inch installed between 1945 and 1970. And our pipeline management program, for about 8 years have been doing, we call it an alternative project delivery method, which is design build method. So we'll issue a request for proposals for a design build entity, which is usually a partner of an engineering firm and a pipeline firm. And it protects us, or it shifts risk related to change orders and things like that to the design build entity, because they're responsible for the design and doing the homework and making sure that their design works. And it's a really great way to do pipelines, because even doing a design we would call like 100% design, when you go to dig it up, you still might not know what you find. And this process has been working really well for us. And here I'm just showing kind of the old section of pipe in this intersection being pulled out, and then the new section being installed over here on the right side. And the red parts are valves, and this blue part's flex coupling. And then there's some thrust restraints around that flex coupling there. There's another flex coupling back there, and all these things here are just shoring, it's called, to make that trench safe for the workers to be inside of it. Then we've got our facility and plants. We've got potable and recycled systems, so we really got two systems. It's 22 pressure zones with 32 tanks and reservoirs, 31 pump stations, and within that, there's 72 pumps and motors, 16 wells, 6 interconnections, 3 pressure regulating stations. We've got 2 treatment plants, chemical facilities. We have 2 turbine generators where we recover energy and generate some clean energy. We've got 6 dams. Actually now we're down to 5 dams, and we've got our SCADA system, our supervisory control and data acquisition system. And we just recently completed a rehabilitation of one of our wells in the Verdugo Basin, our foothill well. And what it shows here, it's basically a nylon brush that we send down in the well, that the contractor sends down there and brushes the perforations to help clean them out. And here's some chemical. They do some chemical treatment. They brush it and swab it and try and get the production from that well back up. We just completed our Glendale Heights tank replacement project. And this is one you can see from the 2 freeway. This tank serves a big part of Adams Hill. And these are just some great pictures of the contractor demolishing the old tank. And it's got a hydraulic, almost like scissors or a big clip on the end of this tracked excavator. And then here's the contractor, just different stages of it, installing the new tank. We call this the ring wall. That's the support, the concrete that's poured there. They're putting the steel plates for the floor. The welders are inside kind of welding up that first ring, and then just the rest of the tank, doing all the welds on that. And this is in service now. We did a lot of pump station upgrades. The picture on the left is at our Glorieta pump station, just pulling the old pump out. And we actually put a smaller pump there that's going to help us improve water quality in the system. This pump station will jump one of our pressure zones to reduce the age of the water in the system. So it's going to go from the 968 zone up to the 1666 zone, and it's going to skip basically the 1290 zone. This electrical panel is being installed through a window at our western pump station. So inside of that pump station, that picture right to the right is one of the new pumps. We essentially gutted the entirety of that, put in all new electrical and 2 new pumps in that pump station recently. And then the pump on the bottom picture is at our Grandview pump station. And this pump station is kind of the last step of our Glendale water treatment plant, which is part of that EPA Superfund cleanup project. It goes into the reservoir that's next to these pumps, and then it pumps it from here to the distribution system. And that pump station, we used to have, and we still do, kind of older technology, these synchronous motors, and we put in an induction motor to help us with the controls, being able to have more off-the-shelf control components to keep that pump running. We've done some site improvements. On the left, it's our Brand Park slope repair project. Again, we poured in kind of a retaining wall. We've compacted the earth there and the soil. We put some riprap down below, and it just is ensuring that the dam here at the Brand reservoir is up to the correct design standards and the width there. And the picture on the right, again, is at that western pump station. This is where we're doing a big site improvement and landscaping project to put in drought tolerant plants. This particular site basically is equivalent to 35 front yards. So we're putting all California native and drought tolerant plants there, and a new fence kind of around that system. The last time we had records of the landscaping being done there was the 1960s. So it was time for a big upgrade. And then I talk about annual rehabilitation and replacement, which could be things like just fire hydrants and valves, but it's also specialized equipment. And this particular piece of equipment is a trailer we use for maintaining the chloramine residual in our tanks. And it pumps water in and out of the tank through the system. It monitors the chloramine residual, and it'll mix ammonia and chlorine and keep that residual at the proper level within the tank. Because otherwise, we literally just dump maybe powdered chlorine through a hatch on the roof, which doesn't give very good mixing or a very good chloramine residual, which is the disinfectant that we maintain on our distribution system. So since 2014 through 2020, we've replaced 37,000 feet of 4-inch cast iron main, 52,000 feet of total main replacement, 762 service lines, 241 new fire hydrants, and 850 new valves. And again, we've got a picture of the fire hydrant, and those red parts in these other photos are the valves that we've been replacing. And then just, to kind of monitor the results, we look at both the number of services affected due to main breaks, the total service hour interruptions. So maybe the main, where there was a service interruption for so many hours, and then just times the number of services affected, and then just the average duration. So for the most part, those have been trending down. We did have a large outage back in 2020 that went for several hours. It took us a while to shut off a hydrant that had been hit in an intersection up on Mountain. And then just as far as, when I talk about the cost, because I've heard some questions about this. So there's really in the CAFR, not a section that says how much did we spend on capital projects. You have to look between construction work in process and the change in installed asset value. So basically, since 2013 to 2020, we've invested $97 million in capital improvements in the water system, averaging about $10 million a year. In 2013, we had done some $35 million in bonds. So we invested all that, plus the rest of it's been pay-as-you-go financing through our water rates. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Very interesting. Comments, Commissioner Jasmine?
No, no comments at this time.
Commissioner Kadikian,
No comments. Thank you, Mr. DeGhetto.
Commissioner Lal,
Thank you, President Flanagan. Thank you for this very thorough presentation, Mr. DeGhetto. I do remember that very dramatic water outage on Mountain. It happened very, very close to my home, and I saw it in person, and it really was a sight to behold. It was a giant, it looked like a pillar of water coming out of the ground. So if that's the same incident that I'm recalling, it certainly was dramatic.
Commissioner, it is.
Okay. I'm glad to hear about the site improvements at the reservoir as well, and that's located in the same general area. And obviously, we want to see native plants wherever possible. I guess my question is, do you do any kind of sort of survey to make sure that there are no nesting birds, or that there are no other native wildlife that might be on those sites before demo is undertaken? And I just asked because you said, well, that site had not been landscaped since the 1960s. It's a site that I walk by very frequently, and I know that it was quite overgrown. There was a whole family of coyotes living there. There were, presumably other wildlife living there. I was just curious as to how you examine a site before it's demoed.
Commissioner Lal, we had an arborist survey all the trees and select which trees needed to be removed because, they were sick or, not in good shape. And then we had a whole planting schedule that the arborist developed with the, proper kind of tree to put in each area. And I don't have that slide handy, but I think it was something like more than 100 trees we're installing. We're increasing the number of trees at the site. And then as far as animals, we don't want coyotes living at our reservoir site. We don't want them running on top of the reservoir and, doing whatever it is that coyotes do up there because it's drinking water. But I will say by installing native plants, there will definitely be more birds and insects and things like that living in that neighborhood now because it'll be a much more natural environment. And I'll just say we have screens and whatnot on all the reservoir outlets to prevent insects and things like that from getting in the reservoirs.
How does changing the size of the pipes affect water pressure? So if you have a lot of neighborhoods that have 4-inch pipe now, and you're increasing to an 8-inch pipe, will they notice a change in the water pressure?
Commissioner Lal, this is one of those where I try not to put equations up in my presentations, but there's two components that cause the pressure in the pipes. One would be what we call static, which is related to the pressure from the pumps and the elevation of the water in the reservoirs that serve a specific area. But the other components, the dynamic pressure, which would be, if everybody has their sprinklers on, the pressure might be lower. So that's the time that having a larger pipe should help maintain the pressure at more of a constant level because there'll be less what we would call dynamic losses or head loss within the pipes. So if you're in an area where, I don't know, you're you run your faucets when everyone else is watering and you notice a drop in pressure, it should help with that. But in and of itself, it shouldn't necessarily make the pressure higher.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, or lower.
Or,
It's not going to affect it either way.
It
Okay.
won't make it lower.
All right. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no comments on this issue other than it was a great presentation, very thorough, makes me want to get out and see it. But are there public comments on this item, Catalina?
There are no colors for this item.
Can we go to the next item, please? Oral communications?
6, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to appropriate staff for investigation and report.
Do we have any callers?
We do not have any callers.
Let's go to the next item, please.
7, agenda forecast.
Do we have comments on the agenda, things that we want to hear about in the upcoming meetings? Start with Commissioner Jasmine.
No comments at this time.
Commissioner Kadikian?
I was just wondering, when are we going to have the cost of service update? Do we get that every year or every 5 years? I don't recall.
Commissioner Kadikian, are you referencing for water or?
Yes, just the water.
It'll probably be about 2 more years because we don't really do the cost of service update. Let's see, when council approved it, I want to say it was for 5 years.
Okay.
Last time, and then we took a year off because of COVID.
Okay. I don't have any comments about the forecasted agenda otherwise.
Okay. Commissioner Lal?
I do not have any comments.
Okay. Thank you. I continue to press on the clean energy programs. I know we've been tied up with Shoal and Grayson, but I would like to see an update, or like to get an update on the distributed energy resource programs, notably the Sunrun program. And then I've heard some information about the Lime contract and the Franklin contract, but not much. So an update on the clean energy programs would be most appreciated. And I think, unless I'm seeing anybody else shaking their head or whatever, I think that concludes our comments to the agenda forecast. Next item, please.
Next item is item 8, adjournment.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, we want to remember that we are adjourning in memory of Mr. Frank William, Water Supervisor 2, 37-year City of Glendale employee. We are sorry for his passing. Our condolences to his family, friends, and the GWP staff as well. Unless anybody else would like to say anything in that memory, I move to adjourn.
I would just add that I'd like to express, and I'm sure that the other commissioners would heartily agree with this, that we're very grateful to Mr. Williams for his service to our community. And Glendale is a really special place to live. I love living here. And, you know, it's because of the work of people like Mr. Williams that we have such a wonderful community. So a deep and heartfelt thank you. And I hope that you will pass that to his family on our behalf.
Thank you.
We send them our sympathy and our gratitude.
Thank you. Very well put. Motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
I second.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.